boys, boys. I have been working on my gaming backlog like a madman recently, but you can only play so many adventure games until you go insane. So I felt like I wanted a different kind of point and clicking, and so I reinstalled Blitzkrieg 3. This is a game that I have been playing every now and then, and I guess that is my short summary of my feelings for the game. It does enough right to keep me coming back, but it doesn't grab me enough for me to finish it. Until now, at least the German campaign. The Allied and Russian campaigns are still ongoing. Blitzkrieg 3 is a World War II real-time tactics game. The game contains 3 campaigns, Allied, German and Russian. Each campaign having a large number of missions centered in Europe and North Africa. The way it works is that you start with a very small army, but for every mission that you complete, you get new unit cards, and in the later stages of the game, you will have a gigantic army. I find this part of the game very charming, and it is fun to see your army grow over time. There is a research system as well, but I found that part less interesting. While this is fun enough, the main meat of the game are the missions. The missions are fairly varied and can be quite fun. Almost all missions offers some kind of optional objective with some extra reward, which I really like. And it is nice that you can decide which units you want to bring into the mission. In terms of real-time tactics gameplay, this is more on the arcade side, and there is a lot less details going on than if you compare it to some of its competitors, like for instance the Men of War games. Infantry is not controlled individually. The cover system is very basic. You can't repair vehicles, you don't need to worry about ammo, and etc. and etc. There are still a lot of things that you need to consider to not get your soldiers brutally murdered, of course. But the point is that in the real-time tactics genre, it is on the arcade side, with faster pace and shorter missions at the cost of less options and less realism.
Down, 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 backing up, backing up, backing up, backing up. My daddy taught me good. I'm backing it out of there. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Backing up, backing up, backing up, backing up. My daddy taught me good. And I think maybe I should faint, but I don't. My daddy taught me good.
There are a lot of fun options still. Your infantry can build the trenches, take over buildings and different kinds of mounted guns. You have a large amount of support options like calling in recon, bombers or fighting planes.
Reinforcement points received.
Your tanks can set up protective barriers in front of them, and your artillery can murder everything on the map. Often though, it all boils down to selecting your army of tanks and mowing down the enemy. Balance is a hard thing to talk about, but I find this to be a very tank-focused game. Infantry is very squishy, and if they are not hiding in buildings or manning mounted guns, then they can get slaughtered very quickly.
is lost.
This is a game where you really need to make use of all your resources to win. And infantry is not that much cheaper than tanks in this game. The way it works is that you start the missions with a certain number of points, which you can then use to select which units you want to bring into the mission. During the mission, you will get more points to bring in reinforcements and so forth. There is a fair amount of different units, but it often turns into a tank party, as they seem to be the most well-rounded units in the game. To give you one example, assault infantry have the ability to storm houses with enemy forces, but they will take a lot of losses.
Okay. Our infantry is lost.
Tanks, on the other hand, can stand outside and blow the shit out of the house with 0 casualties. One assault infantry almost cost as much as a cheap tank, so it just seems like a waste of resources. I am not that bright, so I am most likely shit at this game, but the game do have some difficult missions. The difficulty curve is all over the place, sadly, with some missions being too easy, but in a lot of missions you are outnumbered to the point where I feel like I need to save scum and abuse the AI to get by. And then I am not going to waste my points on some silly assault squad when I can buy a tank instead. Sadly, the same is true for a lot of support stuff as well. Calling in recon planes sounds cool, but if it costs as much as a new tank, then I think I'm going to go with the new tank. The balance is just a bit off, which is a shame, because the game do have a lot of units in it and cool options, which I don't really use that much as I would like. Overall, the game can feel a bit unpolished at times, and the AI can be a bit weird. Tanks will sometimes decide to drive up to their targets instead of shooting at them from a distance, which looks a bit odd. The game also have this line of sight mechanic, where different units have different line of sights, which is a cool idea. A powerful tank might have a crappy line of sight, which then can be compensated by having a scouting unit nearby. It sounds cool, but the AI will just ignore incoming fire from out of their sight. It is annoying when it happens to your units, and it is very easy to abuse against AI. And it shouldn't even be called abuse. Calling in a sniper to spot enemy tanks for my artillery should feel like a legit tactic and not an abuse of the enemy AI. Taking a step back from the missions, the game have a fairly varied number of maps with a lot of nice details to them. The combat looks nice as well, and while nothing is impressive, it is good enough to put me in a nice mood. It also helps that I can disable the HUD, a feature I always like. The game also do have a skirmish mode, which is nice. The multiplayer seems to be dead, but they have this AI called Boris, which they promise is not actually cheating. I like the idea, but you can't pause the game in skirmish mode for some reason, and the microing is just too much for my little brain on harder difficulties. There is an elephant in the room that I haven't talked about yet, and that is that this game is always online. It is kind of shitty, and a lot of people seems to face issues with their servers. It has worked for me so far, but it sucks that paying customers are getting locked out of their game for this silly reason. If we ignore this, then I think that Blitzkrieg 3 is a fun enough real-time tactics game. It is not amazing, but the truth is that we don't have that many World War II strategy games. People who think differently are stuck mentally in another age. What do we even have today? Men of War, Sudden Strike, Company of Heroes, and Steel Division? It is not that much at all. To me, this game with its arcadey gameplay and large amount of smaller missions scratches an itch at least. Be careful about the always online nonsense, but if a more arcadey World War II strategy game is what you are looking for, then I would recommend Blitzkrieg 3 on a sale.
Jawohl, Kommandant.
LKW einsatzbereit. Noch mit den Klicken.
Wir sind dabei.